This is the 8-9 Combo. I'm Brett McKay. This is Harry Jones, and this is the Weekend Post-Mortem. Hello, mate. And for the first time in 2025, let me ask you, where are you?
Yeah, I'm in a library in an old house in Cork City, down on the southern edge of Ireland,
Of
having
course you are.
having traversed across this great island on a real rugby odyssey
Mm,
and a lot of different angles to it. And it's interesting because I've been fascinated by Ireland's rise and tried to study it almost like monks would, transcribing the Book of Kells, where it's the same Latin Vulgate. You're still looking at Jerome's four Gospels, but you just keep writing it differently.
mm.
And getting into the rugby landscape of Ireland, as I have for this 3 or 4, 5 years now, sometimes as a rival, sometimes as trying to dig through the ashes and find out what went wrong, but also what's going right. And in the process of that, I was invited to be in part of this play, which we've talked about, but now it's
Yeah,
happened. And I feel like it was really interesting to walk through these interprovincial rivalries because it was a play written by and performed by people from Leinster about a Munster legend, Axel Foley, Anthony Foley, his sister in attendance, Orla, the lovely Orla, who's started a charity to keep his memory alive called Orla's Wild Ways. And the assemblage was all Munster people, and the play itself, although it sounds very avant-garde art, and with people were wearing black, and there was black box, and there was, theater production and green rooms. It was a rugby play. It
yeah.
was a revival not only of a person, Axel Foley, number 8, so right up our alley on the spot, a rampaging good 8 who always said some gift. That was his phrase, which was he would talk to a player when he was a coach and go some gift and inspire them that they had a gift in them. But also it was a recapture of the win in Soldier Field. The play is called
Yeah.
Soldier Field, performed by Salem's Dramatic Society. Pat McCarry, our friend on the pod, was the playwright, director, and a labor of love. His wife told me for 3 or 4 years she didn't hardly
Yeah.
see him, and now it's on. And what it is
Now it's
it
on.
in great detail details these 4 different fans' lives who make their way to Chicago and find their way there, including, like the guy who missed the kick that where the Ireland could have beaten New Zealand many
Mm.
years ago, and he's telling it that he did make it in a pub, and so there's all these stories come together. But what I was struck by was how the country of Ireland, the island of Ireland, which incorporates Ulster obviously for rugby, so I couldn't really call it the country, suppose, how they band together and also they fight so much about little tiny things, because they really don't want the Leinster guy to win. Like when I was talking about the Durban win, people in Munster, in Limerick, were like, I don't want to talk about Frawley's drop goal. It's a bit too much made of that. And so
Yeah,
they are
right.
really deeply into derbies.
Yeah,
And so it
right.
took me from that and just people stopping you, like an old man stopping me and telling a story and tears in his eyes about this is the last time he came to the Thomond Park in Limerick was 40 years ago, and he's telling me the story, and he's getting tears in his eyes. And on the way into the stadium, there's a guy with a horse, just leading a horse past the stadium into the traffic. Just very random things. The game,
Okay.
yes, right next to the stadium. Um, and so there's a 3 things I want to say about that is one, people are really in touch with their teams.
Mm.
The having a corporate alignment marketing program isn't necessary because everyone knows someone on the team. Everyone
Yeah.
knows the physio. Everyone knows the person who's doing the lights, and so they're all connected. Second, their interprovincial rivalries are so strong that they're almost skeptical of the national engagement and waiting to see if it's going to work or not. Um,
Yeah,
but
right.
and the
That's
third thing
interesting.
is they remember every little detail. And they lie about it sometimes too, but they remember every, like when they say, and then when Connor Murray, because there's a guy in this play playing Connor Murray, which is a thankless task. Rob Carty, how handsome do you have to be that guy? And so they're playing these guys, and they're recapitulating these moments when they thought they would certainly lose again for the 116th year in a row, and then they won. The audience itself started to cheer, like along
Yeah.
with the rugby action.
Yeah.
My biggest fear was I had to go up and my part is a spoken part. It's CJ Standard, and I have these
It's
moments
always
where I'm
tough.
on the screen. Yeah, but at the end I had to come onto the stage, and it was a tremendous jump from the ground to this box to the stage. You had to nail it just right, or you would fall on your face, which I did think about doing on purpose because it would be funny. But instead, I tried to do like a lot non-assisted line-out jump onto the stage, and it came off, and I was very excited. And then we had a great after party at Dolan's. So yeah, my odyssey through here has taught me that Ireland is still coming to grips with being successful. Don't
Yeah.
quite believe it. They keep waiting for the shoe to drop, for the anvil to drop, for the hammer to hit them. It's a doomsday island. You'd like it actually.
Yeah.
Looking
Right.
around, people are like, there's sort of an inherent pessimism here, and and so the quarterfinal exits almost fits. It's like it's the
Yeah.
one punchline that keeps them grounded, where they go, yeah, but the quarterfinals. So
Yeah. Right. That's the one. It's the one shared odyssey, isn't it? That's cool. Now I've got so much more context around pictures you've been sending me over the weekend, which has been cool, and which I'm sure we'll get into in different ways through this. It's our first non-test match weekend post-mortem, and it's going to be a little bit different, I suppose, to what you've seen through the Six Nations so far this year. And while we're not going to look at every game in upwards of half a dozen leagues and comps around the rugby world, the intent's still the same, mate, isn't it? To sort of have a look over the big moments and the results from games that sort of grabbed us over the weekend. That's what we're aiming for here.
yeah, no, I think it's well within what I was talking about in these pubs and bars of Ireland is you go to see a match, and then you go to the pub, and then everyone talks about what they think they saw,
Mm.
and you by the time you leave the pub 3 or 5 hours later, you've changed what you thought you saw. It's the post-mortems. It's the sitting
Yeah,
around in the mead hall, the Viking warriors, where fantastical lies. By the end, everyone was a superhero. But I do think that's part of rugby is the chat. We have a very
the folklore.
technical,
Yeah,
yeah, complicated game. So you can see any rock a different way. If I want to see it this way, you want
yeah,
to see it that way, we can talk about that.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. A quick message then before we get into it. If you're listening to the 8-9 Combo on Spotify or Apple Pods or any of the podcast platforms, then just very quickly hit the subscribe button, the follow button, whatever it might be right now. And if you're watching on the 8-9 YouTube channel, just hit the red subscribe button just down there in the bottom corner. You won't miss an episode, and the numbers climbing like they are keeps us having great rugby chats each week. The 5-word headline is on hold. We've decided we're going to save that for test weeks, which probably makes life a bit easier for everyone trying to work out which particular game or comp the headline might apply to. So that will be back next week in week 3 of the Six Nations. So let's get into it, mate. It was the opening round of Super Rugby, and it was a mad weekend. It was a mad weekend of Super Rugby with some of the results. It all kicked off with the Crusaders toppling the Hurricanes pretty well, and I don't mind saying I didn't think they'd be anywhere near as good as they were to beat the Hurricanes, but they were. But then we go to Sydney on Friday night, and it's the Waratahs with that last minute extraordinary win over the Highlanders in Sydney. Siosifa Omani with a double, two tries to win the game effectively, and they were really good. The Waratahs. That's a game they would have lost several times over last weekend, and here they are finding ways to win.
That's just that there's an art to the winning, right? I think
Yeah,
if you keep winning last second tries, in the end, your season probably doesn't go very well. So you want to kick on and start to win more handsomely. But there is a thing about just knowing how to win, and it's its
yeah,
own separate category. It sits separately from statistics and your line out and your scrum. It's just in those moments when it all comes down to it, you actually believe that you will execute, like we've talked about this,
Yeah,
the England win over France. That was just a moment where everyone in that play thought, no, I can do this and I will do this. And here I'm going to do it. And
yeah.
the Waratahs a season ago just found every way to lose those.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the whole collective belief thing, and you could see the post match the pride in everything in everyone. Dan McKellar couldn't wipe the smile off his face, and he was obviously and rightly proud of the efforts. All the players made mention of the fact that Amorne, the replacement prop who I mentioned, scored the 2 late tries. He shed 25 kilos over the off season to get fit. He came in a little bit over the weight limit. And so he's worked extremely hard to get there. And like that's actually pretty cool rewards. And the Waratahs have got to bye this weekend to a bad timing. Of all the times that they would want to go, right, let's just play again, they go straight into a bye. And so they've got to gear up for, I think they've got Queensland in a few weeks, maybe after that. So their next game can't come quick enough. The Brumbies did what no other Australian team had done before, and that is to win over the Drua in Fiji. And I've got to admit, I know I picked it, and I know I predicted it, and I said 5 points, and it was 4 points in the end. I wasn't confident about that one at all.
When you picked it, did you already know that Bernie was doing his bet where he was not taking the top team? So I think that's the cool gamble. And you do that, and Jeff Parks and we discussed the idea of storyboarding a season, and you don't take your best possible team to every match, but if you can do one of those and steal it in that hostile environment, you got to feel good about it.
It's big, and like six debutants, a lot of young guys with, less than a dozen games probably to their name, or certainly not many. They get so much out of a win like that. So congratulations to the Brumbies. They've got the Force this weekend, and then they go to New Zealand to play the Chiefs and Blues. So that's why that win in Fiji was so important to them. Speaking of the Blues and Chiefs, the grand final replay, and it was all Damien McKenzie show as the Chiefs were just way too good. And again, I didn't think the Chiefs would get anywhere near as close as they did to the Blues. I thought the Blues would actually win it quite comfortably. And in the end, it's 25-14 to the Chiefs, of which Damien McKenzie scored everything bar one try. And they were pretty comfortable in the end, I've got to say.
Yeah, the theory I had around the Blues doing well to start was that their style of play doesn't depend on a lot of trickery and elaborate. But actually, when I thought about it, and I thought this as I watched some rugby this weekend here in Ireland, that the comfortability, whatever it's called, the ease of physical, highly physical, up the gut, narrow power rugby, it does sort of take some getting used to. So if that's your game plan, maybe it's the carry clean game, it's the resource to ruck game. If you're just a little bit late in rugby on the clean, that carry was bad. That carry was terrible. And it was a beautiful carry, but it was a terrible carry because he didn't clean. So I thought the Blues are going to obviously have a Vern Cotter rocket up their arses all week. And I can see him almost being happy, like, oh, see, I told you weren't that good.
I don't want to say I told you so, but yeah. I feel most sorry for the Highlanders at this point, who now, after having had to make the long trek back to the South Island after the heartbreaking loss on Friday night, now have the prospect of facing a very, very angry Blues team for their first home game of the year. So that doesn't sound like much fun either. The Western Force pulled off just an absolute miracle win over Moana Pacifica in Perth on Saturday night. I said on our chat group that at halftime, it was amazing what a difference holding onto the ball made for the Force, because they looked so much better, even dangerous when they did. But then the second half, I lost count of the number of different ways they were trying to lose that game. And it looked like it was gone. It was well and truly, looked like it was well and truly before them. And suddenly they scored 2 converted tries in the last 4 minutes, in fact it was. And Ben Donaldson runs away for the match winner. In the 83rd or 84th minute. I mean, again, that's a game the Force would have lost many, many times over in the past.
Yeah, so Moana Pacifica is definitely one of those teams that's still learning how to win.
They look much better, though. I will say they're not going to surprise anyone now, because I think that was a big statement performance from them as well.
Yeah, the thrills and spills of defense-free rugby, I think, will tighten up as the season goes on. All the defensive coaches will be a little bit upset about this weekend, and they'll find specific areas where you can do better. I think I stood alone saying the Crusaders are actually kind of returned to the old Crusaders, and we have to watch out for them. But I wasn't really thinking about whether the bottom edge of Super Rugby had also taken a rise up. And if that's true, this is very early results.
That's a good thing.
But if it is true, it's very good for the comp that, any given Saturday, we want to have a situation where everything's in jeopardy. I wrote an article for the Roar this week about filling up stadia, and I got some really great chatter on the Roar about how, and everything I've researched, and it's sort of like why you don't have to worry about filling up Torrent Park in Munster against a nothing game of Scarlets is it's that the whole community attaches, and nothing attaches the community more than jeopardy, suspense. You don't have to win all those, but you have to be in the fight, because then everyone thinks, I'm going to the fight tonight. I'm part of it. And Moana Pacifica, obviously trying to build a customer fan base, that's going to help if you have these close games. Close games
Absolutely
are what makes leagues full. The seats full is when people are never really knowing what's going to happen. So the death of it is the Crusaders, where they win so many times in a row and they're just toweling everyone. That's actually the worst possible thing for a league. And so I'm hoping that the Force, the Pacifica, all these teams have just taken a little step up without anyone taking a step down.
I got 3 out of 5 in my tips for the weekend, and I don't think that's a bad thing for the competition at all. If you are only, and I wasn't even really confident about the 3 that I got right.
I'm in the lead.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you had the Crusaders over me. So
I'm just riding the Crusaders win.
It's like, as you say, a bit of jeopardy, a bit of unpredictability. That can only be a good thing, I think, for that. The ERC, it's round 11 in the ERC, and the big thing for the weekend was Zebre, the Italian team. No question. They, with a second straight away win, beat Edinburgh quite well in the end. It was where is that score? 22-17 up in Edinburgh. And I liked Simon Thomas, the Welsh writer, had made the great observation that Zebre hadn't won an away game in the league for 4 years, something like that. Now they've won 2 in 2 weeks. They've won consecutive weekends away. So, it's good signs.
That's a sad jersey to have in the pictures.
Oh, it's a terrible jersey.
Exalting your win.
Terrible jersey.
Hang your head in shame. I don't like it. No, the ERC was upset city this weekend.
Yeah,
just
well, even Ospreys gave Leinster a hell of a headache.
They did. And and so the wonderful thing about having real rivalries, and I've often tweaked and sledged Aussies for being too excited for their fellow Aussie teams to do well, is Bulls and Stormers, Western Province and the old Praetorians, we really hate each other. And so when one of your teams loses, like we did, because our goof troop, no plan, Stormers trying to play chicken wing, offloads when none are needed, it goes down. But the Bulls lost too, and the Bulls loss was worse. And so you end up having a good weekend because you go, but you lost to the Sharks, and they had 12 men on the field, and you lost to them. That's forever a sledge.
Exactly. So the Lions 30 beat the Stormers 23, and yes, the Sharks 29 beat the Bulls 19. A bonus point win at Loftus. That doesn't happen too often.
2 of our friends were there. Remember when Belinda Glenn was there with Johan? Johan. So imagine Johan, how sad he would have been.
Oh, yeah, he would have been. He would have been. Benetton beat Ulster 34-19. How often in the ERC do both Italian teams win on the same weekend?
Oof, and that Ulster result was very, very bad for that province. I've heard some of the worst possible takes on that. I mean, they're just really, really, really dismal about that loss.
Yeah.
How big it was, how certain it was. They were just completely comprehensively outplayed. With too many getting carded. I mean, it's just everything going wrong right now for Ulster.
Yeah, sounds like it. Connacht beat Cardiff 24-19. Munster 29 beat Scarlets 8. at Tormund Park. You were there. You were talking about going.
Yeah,
Did you end up going?
I did. I went there, and it's a great park. So Cowlin, who I think you've been on his pod,
Yeah.
is a local, and he goes to the Treaty City pub, which has probably more dogs than humans. And there's a piano on a ledge that I cannot imagine how someone got a piano there, and I'm really worried about one day when it does fall, as it certainly will fall. Good old timers, plenty of people there from Wales. And then he walks up there and he's part of the press box because they respect pod guys there. And
Yeah.
then he comes back and recapitulates. So I'll just say the two players that I was really excited to see live for Munster were Tom Ahern, the big rangy flank lock. He's about
Mm.
6'9", and then Gavin Coombs, who's been for years one of my favorite players to watch. A
Yeah.
powerhouse 8, gets over the gain line, indefatigable in both sides, where he tackles and carries. And just live seeing the power of Gavin getting
Yeah.
over the gain line was super fun. And then Tom Aaron did a rangy, it was disallowed, but he did a rangy try where he used all of that 6'9" length to score. It was quite
Yeah.
fun.
Right.
There's an opera singer. So you add the guy with a horse, and now you walk in and there's a guy singing, getting the crowd revved up with a thing.
Sounds like It sounds like you're
Fight
setting
like
up for a punchline.
Fight Like Hell, that's the song, but it's delivered operatically, like the tenors of Ireland.
Yeah.
And it's just very quaint and crazy and fun. The town is very much behind it. I really enjoyed it. And also just the chatter around. Um, there's no one quite that does in-game chatter than Irish fans. They just
Yeah.
really hilarious how they're sarcastic, turn on their own team, and then in 1 second they're celebrating. That
Yeah.
was a powerful team against Scarlets. They had some recognizable players, and they had one guy on who came on, the physio, who looks just like Sam Warburton, and it turns out he's his twin. He's identical twin. Like, why is Sam Warburton a physio?
That explains it then. That explains it. There you go. There you go. The ERC table is getting really, really tight, and we love a tight table, as you well know. There's the Bulls are third on 35 points, and Cardiff are sixth on 30. So that's one bonus point win could completely uproot the mid tier of the table, and then even sort of down a bit lower, Benetton are in seventh on 28. And then you've got the Lions, Osprey, Ulster, 12th, 13th, 14th on 23. So the table could do this for the next
Yeah.
So like
The
that's
home stretches, the permutations are almost incalculable. But one thing is for sure, a team like the Bulls getting nothing at home against the Sharks,
that
who were
does
down to
not help.
12 men, as was not part of their storyboard. Their storyboard, they took something from that match.
No. If you are watching, obviously on our YouTube channel, if you're listening on Spotify as well, tell us your highlight of the weekend. Like we love hearing and we love seeing the comments and all that. So you've got the ability to make the comments. So let us know, or obviously hit Harry and I and the 8-9 up on the socials as well. It was around 16 of the top 14, and the big thing I think I saw over the weekend, Bayonne beating Bordeaux 36-32, I beg your pardon. Really, really good win, I think you've got to say there. Bordeaux kicked a late penalty to get it back within 4. That's a good win for Bayonne. They're up to 4th now. I think they might have been 4th before, but that's a really good win at home. But the other thing that I really noticed of the weekend, and we've spoken about how La Rochelle do not care away from home, get done 53-17 to Lyon.
On that Bayonne result, so Bayonne's been good all season. Bordeaux probably had one of the best first 2/3 of a season in the world, and now they seem to be a little bit fading. But the result against Bayonne is not too bad when you factor in how good Bayonne is. And the funny twist of that is Jake White was saying, no, we couldn't have really gone all the way in the Champions Cup, so now we're falling back into the Challenge Cup, and it's okay. Who do they draw in the first playoff match of the Challenge Cup? Bayonne. And they'll play in Bayonne. And Bayonne is a proper team. If you look at the team sheet, you don't see what you see in some of these other French teams where you see all the current French players plus some superstars, 4 or 5 superstars. Bayonne is actually more like some of the players that you'll recognize from they used to be playing for the French national team,
Yeah,
and they're
right.
hanging on. So it's a
The
really
France team from
interesting.
5 years ago. Yeah,
Yeah, they play a very scrappy brand. I would say Bordeaux is. There's some questions now about Bordeaux, about depth, about
yeah.
their ability to sustain this long drive. It's a
Pete
hell of a
Samu played
season.
on the wing.
Yeah, which is people will joke, and that was always maybe his preferred
Yeah,
position. He finally,
yes,
with
yeah,
his shirt tucked in, going down the trams. But yeah, I think you look at Bordeaux now and you wonder about their ability to satisfy that
yeah,
grind. There's no season on earth that's worse than the top
yeah.
14 if you're also a genuine challenger for the
Absolutely,
Champions Cup, because you are just playing rugby
excellent.
forever.
Forever, yeah, yeah. So Toulon beat Montpellier away from home to 38-30, and so now Toulon have now joined Bordeaux on top of the ladder on 52 points. So there's Toulouse can overtake them both. They're still to play in this round, but Bayonne are 8 points back in fourth. So there's a bit of a gap there between top three and the rest, but that's all getting a little bit interesting. It was week 9 of the League One in Japan, and no really hugely surprising results. I've got to say, Toshiba just keep Suntory have really become a mid-table team, so Toshiba have kicked them further whilst they've been down. The game that I mentioned on midweek as being my game of the week for Japan was the Rico Black Rams and Urasu Derox. Rico ended up winning that by 22 points, which just puts them like a full win clear in the relegation zone. So it makes life a bit easier for them. Still not
Mm.
out of the woods, but it makes life easier for them there as well. Cannon Eagles and Saitama Wild Knights are actually underway as we record this, so Panasonic can go higher up the ladder with a win there. Major League Rugby, mate. In the end, Dogs beat Cats. Chicago 25 beat the goddamn Houston Sabercats 22 in Houston. The big thing, though, I saw out of the weekend, Old Glory DC with a try on full time and then conversion after the bell to beat Miami 31-29.
Mm.
Bit of a boil-over result, might have been.
That is a wild one. The Hounds also have the second best rugby player in the world, Timo Swiel, good Cape Town boy, who's played rugby all around the world. And there's this new
Definitely
game.
played Super Rugby, I'm sure.
Yeah, and he's played everywhere.
Yeah.
Timo, he's a really difficult guy to tackle, wonderful kicker, but never really got to the point of. He played Western Province, but he never got to the point of national selection. But
Yeah.
he's playing right now in the Chicago Hounds, and there's this new video game that came out for rugby, and it has the players ranked in their skill and power. And of course, Antoine Dupont is number one, and number two is Tim Swiel, the Chicago Hounds. And the maker of the game just came out yesterday and had to put a clarifying statement. We're working on an algorithm. Yes, maybe there's been an outcry that Tim Swiel is the second best player in the world. Poor Timo. Timo probably thinks he is, but to be fair, actually.
No,
yeah.
I love it. I love it. San Diego and Seattle will round out the opening round of Major League Rugby as well. Anything else to wrap up? It's been a busy weekend for you,
Yeah,
particularly.
my post-mortem in particular is a beautiful match that I attended in Donnybrook, which is a suburb sort of south of Dublin. It's inside the greater Dublin area, and let's just call it posh. And so at that stadium, you have people rocking up in the most amazing rides, or just strolling, as families from their beautiful estates, and they arrive to watch the pride of Blackrock College against St. Michael's. St. Michael's is obviously well renowned for producing, ministers and dignitaries and poets and writers, but also rugby players. And then Blackrock is of recently the powerhouse in Irish schools rugby. So this is Leinster Senior Cup quarterfinals, 70 minutes of hell. The stadium filled up very early with Blackrock painted up, chanting, megaphones. They never stopped. It was like a French game and just never stopped going. And then all their parents and sisters and the friends and everything were packing in with their little blue pom-poms, light blue. And then over here was St. Michael's with the darker, kind of light blue too, but darker blue. So it's blue
Yeah.
versus blue. And this
So
game
that was Super Rugby
ensued.
game then.
Yeah, and it was like watching the Irish style replicated, swarming on every ruck.
Yeah, right.
Possibly at the back, 2 or 3 layers, decoy runners, fantastic kicking. So, a guy, Paddy Clancy. Can you get any more Irish than this name? Paddy Clancy was the number 10 for Blackrock, and Paddy Clancy led the whole team around on a string. If you just got the ball in his hands, you were watching sort of a Sexton type who didn't
Yeah.
look like much in and of his own, but he just always knew where the breaks were and the space was. And so
Yeah.
at I think halftime it was very close. BlackRock kept the players on the field and just screamed at them in the cold, wet, rainy wind, and just shouted at these kids. And then they came out gangbusters and just buried St. Michael's
Yeah,
going
right.
away. So that was an interesting to me. I loved watching the spirit aspect of the crowd. There was no DJ needed because they
Yeah.
just never stopped. They were banging the drums and going crazy.
Yeah.
Wonderful
That's
time.
good.
Bernard Jackman, our friend, called me down to the field and making all my neighbors very green with envy. Because then they'd have to look at me like I was a real person, because out of
Who
all the
is this
people,
guy?
he pointed at me to come down here, and I got to go down there. Bernard Jackman was calling the Seniors Cup to put in landscape how important that match is. They had sideline commentary. They had Bernard
Wow.
Jackman there. It's
That's
huge,
proper.
and the fire and the passion that you have interested in Seniors Cup in Ireland right now is palpable. The other thing I would point out is the intelligence of some of the play was off the charts. I mean, if you could watch
Yeah.
some of this play, you'd say, I wish the Stormers would play. So I was like, Paddy, come to Cape Town. You could be our guy. And someone joked and said, if you're offering him a Stormers contract, he has more in pocket money right now. These kids are not struggling.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. That then wraps up the latest edition of the Weekend Post-Mortem. Tell us what you think right here on the 8-9 Combo YouTube channel. You can leave a comment if you're listening on Spotify, as I mentioned, and you can hit us up by finding and following the 8-9 Combo on Twitter, on YouTube, and on Blue Sky as well. Leave us a rating or a review wherever you can, and please do share us far and wide across the rugby world. Harry and I remain on the socials in our usual places at Harry Bordy Jones and at BMC Sport. And if you go to Harry's, you'll see some absolutely magnificent images from Trinity College in Dublin, particularly around the Book of Kells and the long room there. It's just extraordinary buildings. This then is the 8-9 Combo, the short side set piece combination you didn't realize you needed in a rugby podcast. I'm Brett McKay. He's Harry Jones, and we will be back in your ears for another great rugby chat midweek.
Come play with us.
I had to do this by myself the other day because you left early.
Oh, the end? Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to go back and watch that. I haven't watched it.
People wondering
the whole
what I was going on
production.
about that.